Why do Iran and Saudi Arabia stand in such deep opposition? The answer is straightforward. A religious schism from 400 years ago has reignited as a modern geopolitical conflict. And that conflict crossed a threshold with the 1979 Iranian Islamic Revolution, transforming into a structural collision between two states. Roughly 20% of the world's oil consumption passes through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's uranium enrichment level has surpassed 60%. The Middle East remains an active theater for multiple proxy wars. Why can't this conflict be resolved? This slide explains it all. The first layer is religion. The schism, carved into history by the Battle of Karbala in 680 AD, has never healed, not once in 400 years. The second layer is history. Until 1979, Iran and Saudi Arabia both functioned as pro-American monarchies, maintaining a degree of cooperation. The Islamic Revolution shattered that order at its foundations. Ayatollah Khomeini directly challenged Saudi Arabia's Sunni religious authority, converting a sectarian divide into a geopolitical one. The third layer is structure. Oil, nuclear capability, and geography, the modern axes of conflict, now overlay the original religious fracture. This triple-layered structure is precisely what makes the conflict so resistant to resolution. This is a structural reality confirmed by 5 decades of Middle East political research. This is not speculation. It is a compounded conflict in which religion, history, and geopolitics have fused into a single system. And it is a system that can be understood. Look at the historical map. It becomes clear. Follow the oil and nuclear data. It becomes clear. With this, you can grasp the true nature of the Middle East's Cold War. Today, we examine that data. To understand this conflict, we need to distinguish two historical ruptures. The first rupture is 680 AD. In 632 AD, the Prophet Muhammad died. The question was, who would succeed him? The followers of Ali argued. Succession belongs to bloodline. Ali, the Prophet's cousin, is the rightful heir. The followers of Abu Bakr countered. Succession belongs to community consensus. Bloodline is irrelevant. This theological dispute did not simply vanish. It bled. The Battle of Karbala in 680 AD sealed it in blood. Muhammad's grandson Hussein was killed. That martyrdom did not so much create the split as permanently crystallize a divergence already underway into a defining symbol. The second rupture is 1979. Before that year, Pahlavi-era Iran and Saudi Arabia both functioned as pro-American monarchies. Khomeini's Islamic Revolution destroyed that equilibrium. The revolutionary government directly rejected the religious legitimacy of Saudi Arabia's Sunni-dominated order and raised the banner of Shia expansion. You might think, religious disputes are separate from modern politics. But look at this data. Today, an estimated 90% of Iran's population is Shia. Saudi Arabia's population is overwhelmingly Sunni. Yet the oil-rich eastern province holds a significant Shia minority, an internal fault line the kingdom cannot ignore. The royal title, Custodian of the Two Holy Mosques, is a declaration that Saudi Arabia holds religious authority over the entire Islamic world. Both nations continue, in essence, to deny each other's legitimacy. Religious conflict alone might still be manageable. But the moment oil enters the equation, the conflict becomes a matter of economic survival. Look at the numbers. Saudi Arabia's oil production capacity reaches a maximum of roughly 12 million barrels per day. Currently, however, within the OPEC+ framework, voluntary cuts have brought production down to approximately 9 million barrels per day. And Iran? Sanctions have imposed severe constraints on exports, investment, and financial transactions. Yet through workaround exports, primarily to China, production has been recovering to just over 3 million barrels per day. This asymmetry determines everything. Saudi Arabia holds spare capacity. When prices fall, it compensates with volume. Iran has no such buffer. This is why Iran perpetually needs high oil prices. Consider what happens inside an OPEC+ meeting room. OPEC+ is a coordinating framework that brings OPEC member states together with non-member producers like Russia. Every time Saudi Arabia says, let's increase production to defend market share, Iran takes a hit. Every time Iran says, grant us a production exemption until sanctions are lifted, Saudi Arabia refuses. This is religious conflict transcribed into economic conflict. As long as the sanction structure persists, this asymmetry will not change. The map makes it undeniable. Iran and Saudi Arabia face each other across the Persian Gulf. Look at this strait. The Strait of Hormuz narrows to roughly 33 kilometers, about 21 miles, at its most constricted point. The navigable shipping lanes, however, are even more limited than that. According to EIA data, approximately 20.5 million barrels per day passed through here in the first half of 2023. That is roughly 20% of global oil consumption and around 30% of all oil transported by sea. Which side holds the geographic advantage? It is unambiguous. Iran. Iran sits along the entire northern shore of this strait. It has repeatedly invoked the threat of closure as a diplomatic card. Saudi Arabia has compensated for this geographic disadvantage through other means. It has poured enormous investment into alternative transport routes, including pipelines. The U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet, based in Bahrain, is engaged in Gulf maritime security, and Saudi Arabia has leveraged that presence as a deterrent. But the underlying geography does not change. Mountains and seas do not move. As long as Iran commands Hormuz, Saudi Arabia's primary export route remains perpetually vulnerable. And since 2024, Hormuz has no longer been the only choke point in play. In the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, Houthi attacks on commercial shipping have surged. European and Asian supply chains have been forced to reroute around the Cape of Good Hope, sending insurance and freight costs soaring. What this reveals is a hard reality. When one choke point closes, energy and logistics costs spike at a global scale, in a chain reaction. This is what it means when we say geography is destiny. The map cannot be rewritten. Religion, oil, and geography. When all three collide, what happens? Full-scale direct war tends to be avoided. The cost of a frontal clash between regional powers is incalculable, but the risk of accidental conflict and escalation never disappears. This is why war is fought through proxies. Look at Yemen. In 2015, a Saudi-led coalition intervened. The Houthis are an Iran-backed armed opposition force. Since the 2022 ceasefire agreement, direct attacks on Saudi Arabia have dropped sharply. But the conflict has not gone away. Into 2024, the Houthis redirected their fire toward commercial shipping in the Red Sea. US and UK military intervention followed, and maritime security became fully intertwined with regional rivalries. In Syria, Iran propped up the Assad regime and deployed the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Saudi Arabia provided funding to elements of the opposition, though the targets and scale of that support shifted with the times. In Lebanon, Hezbollah stands at the front line of Iran's regional strategy. In Iraq, Shia militia groups operate in coordination with Iran's Revolutionary Guard. Research institutions estimate Iran's support for proxy forces runs into the tens of billions of dollars annually. The range of estimates is wide, however, and no definitive figure exists. And since October 2023, the Gaza war has added yet another layer of complexity. Multiple armed factions have acted in concert, and tensions have escalated at U.S.-affiliated facilities in Lebanon, Iraq, and Syria. What this demonstrates is that even when states normalize relations diplomatically, non-state actor networks retain the capacity to amplify crises. This is a design structure. Both nations are bleeding each other out while avoiding direct confrontation. Now, a nuclear dimension enters this conflict. There is a foundational fact to establish first. Nuclear risk cannot be measured by enrichment percentages alone. The core issue is how effectively the IAEA's verification regime is actually functioning. From 2024 into 2025, the IAEA has repeatedly expressed concern over Iran's restrictions on verification cooperation. With that context established, look at the numbers. Iran's uranium enrichment level has exceeded 60%. Weapons grade is 90%. But weaponization cannot be achieved through enrichment alone. Stockpile volume, metallization, detonation mechanisms, delivery systems. Multiple additional steps are involved. It is accurate to say that enrichment levels are approaching weapons grade. It is not accurate to say that Iran is one step away from a nuclear weapon. Now consider Saudi Arabia's response. In 2018, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman stated explicitly, "If Iran develops a nuclear weapon, we will follow as quickly as possible." Behind that statement, two developments are unfolding. First, some reports and expert analyses have raised the possibility that Pakistan's relationship with Saudi Arabia could constitute a nuclear option. This, however, has not been confirmed by publicly available information. The second development is more official. Saudi Arabia is currently pressing hard within its defense treaty negotiations with the United States to be granted the right to enrich uranium on its own soil. The strategy is not merely to purchase nuclear weapons. It is to secure enrichment capability through a legitimate civilian pathway. What this signals is that nuclear proliferation risk is not simply a matter of buying weapons from someone. How far to permit the civilian nuclear fuel cycle is itself a variable that shapes regional mistrust. So why does this conflict refuse to end? You might think, the two countries normalized relations in 2023. Doesn't that signal a shift? The data reveals a more complex reality. In March 2023, Iran and Saudi Arabia agreed in Beijing, through Chinese mediation, to restore diplomatic relations. Embassies reopened. The formal architecture of diplomacy was restored. But look at what happened immediately after. The Gaza War, beginning in October 2023, reshuffled the region's power dynamics once again. Saudi Arabia froze its normalization talks with Israel and placed the establishment of a Palestinian state front and center as a precondition. In November 2023, Iranian President Raisi visited Saudi Arabia, staging a show of solidarity on the Palestinian issue. The emergence of a shared agenda temporarily suppressed the overt Iran-Saudi confrontation. But the structure has not changed. Religious conflict cannot be resolved by political agreement. The theological rupture has not narrowed, not once in 400 years. Oil interests will not align as long as the sanctions structure remains unchanged. Geography is fixed. The Strait of Hormuz does not move, and the great powers are locking this structure in place. The United States provides Saudi Arabia with security guarantees while maintaining sanctions against Iran. China holds economic relationships with both Iran and Saudi Arabia, positioning itself as a mediator. When external powers have stakes in a structural conflict, that conflict becomes more entrenched, not less. Diplomatic normalization and the resolution of structural conflict are entirely different problems. Now, let's bring today's analysis into focus. Here is today's summary. First, the double rupture of religion and history. The martyrdom at Karbala in 680 AD symbolically crystallized the Shia-Sunni split. But the sharpening of the conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia as states did not begin until the Islamic Revolution of 1979. Before that, both nations maintained a degree of cooperation as pro-American monarchies. The fusion of 400 years of religious rupture with the post-1979 geopolitical confrontation has made both theological compromise and political negotiation extraordinarily difficult. Second, the structural asymmetry of oil and geography. Saudi Arabia, capable of 12 million barrels per day but currently managing cuts, and Iran, recovering to just over 3 million barrels per day despite sanctions, are fundamentally misaligned in interest within OPEC+. And from Hormuz to the Red Sea, the 2024 Red Sea crisis proved that when choke points cascade, energy and logistics costs spike at a global scale. Geography does not change. Third, the cascading risk of nuclear proliferation. With IAEA verification constraints continuing from 2024 into 2025, Iran's enrichment level has exceeded 60%. Weaponization requires multiple additional steps, yet Saudi Arabia is already demanding uranium enrichment rights in its defense negotiations with the United States. MBS's declaration, "If Iran gets one, we get one," is gaining weight as a real policy option. Diplomacy can normalize. But religion, oil, geography, and nuclear capability, these four structural forces do not change with a handshake. If you were a Middle Eastern leader, how would you begin to unravel this structure? And if it cannot be unraveled, how long can the world continue to absorb the instability of this region? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching. The conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia is a structural problem in which multiple layers, religion, oil, geography, and nuclear capability, are inextricably intertwined. On this channel, we dissect complex global realities through data and logic. Not emotion, facts. Not opinion, mechanisms. Subscribe and gain the analytical lens to read the world. Until next time.